Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight in Liberia, police fired tear gas at crowds of anti-government protesters in Monrovia. Thousands turn out to demonstrate against the country's deepening economic crisis. Many of those in the crowds blame President George Weah. Also, anti-American protests in parts of Nigeria on Monday, sparked by the United States assassination last week of Iranian Commander General Qassem Soleimani. And the port of Pointe-Noire has long been a focal point of Congo-Brazzaville's economy, yet since 2014, the fall in oil prices has had a hard knock on the local business infrastructure. We take a closer look. But first, in Liberia on Monday, police fired tear gas and water cannon at crowds of anti-government demonstrators in Monrovia. Thousands of people turned out to protest against the country's deepening economic crisis. President George Weah has been the focus of the frustration of rallies that have sprung up ever since last summer. Nicola Schimmer has more.
Several thousand Liberians took to the streets of Monrovia to denounce corruption and rising prices. Tensions had risen in recent weeks after the government said it would not allow any protests before the end of January. It finally changed its mind on Sunday. Opposition group, the Council of Patriots, had vowed to defy the ban.
We want the president to deliver on some of our demands. We submitted some of those pressing demands to the president. Up to late Saturday afternoon, the government said they were reviewing the ones that we submitted, 5 of them, and they were prepared to issue a statement delivering on some of those demands.
Some protesters brought a mattress, saying they would sleep in the government headquarters. Police later fired tear gas to disperse demonstrators. Inflation is soaring and civil servants regularly go unpaid. Weah had already faced similar protests in June and July. The former football star, who played for Paris Saint-Germain and AC Milan, easily won the second round of the presidential election 2 years ago. But since then, he has disappointed many Liberians, including those who voted for him.
Well, the US deployed more forces to Kenya on Monday, a day after 3 Americans were killed when a military base there was attacked by Somali al-Shabaab extremists. About 50 extra troops have reportedly been sent in from the US's East Africa Response Force. Sunday's raid on the Manda Bay airfield was the Somali group's first assault on US forces inside of Kenya. 5 attackers were killed in what seems to be a change to al-Shabaab's usual targets.
It is the second time since September last year that al-Shabaab has attacked an American military installation. And so here I think we might see a threat that could bifurcate or move in one of 2 ways. Either this is an indication of al-Shabaab's intent to continuously strike Kenya, something we know that they do intend to do, or it could be also an indication of al-Shabaab's determination now to strike American targets.
Now, there were anti-American protests in parts of Nigeria on Monday, sparked by the United States assassination last week of Iranian Commander General Qassem Soleimani. Police issued a nationwide alert over the weekend to preempt demonstrations by pro-Iran Shiite Muslims from the Islamic Movement of Nigeria. IMN members demanding the release of their leader, Ibrahim el-Zakzaky, have often clashed with security forces ever since he was arrested in 2015. Sam Olukoya tells us more about why there are rallies in Nigeria of the US killing of an Iranian military commander.
Well, it has to be said that these rallies were mainly carried out by members of the Shia movement. And this group have a very strong, they are good friends of the Iranians. The Iranians have supported them over the years. Key of this is concerning the arrest of their leader, el-Zakzaky. The Iranian government has engaged the Nigerian government in a lot of diplomacy over the arrest of the Shia leader in Nigeria. So, and of course, we've seen several demonstrations in Iran concerning the detention of the Shia leader in Nigeria. So for the Shia movement in Nigeria, it's like a time to pay back the Iranians, to show them that we are in support, we appreciate what we have done over the years, and this is just a way for us to show solidarity with you.
More widely, do you think that Nigeria or Africa in general could play much of a role going forward in this emerging conflict that we're seeing between the US and Iran?
Well, I don't see Nigeria or any other African country in terms of resolving the crisis. What they might do is taking sides. So Africa might just be like the Cold War era, where you have to either belong to this or belong to the other. Iran might be looking at getting friends from North Africa, where they are close, where you have they are closely aligned, and then the United States might be looking forward to the other parts of the continent. Of course, Africa is very crucial at a time like this. If there should be vote at the United Nations, then the African votes might count. With coming with 54 members, I think that's a strong bloc. So both sides might definitely want to make friends on the continent so that it could really enhance their position.
So going back to Nigeria and the IMN, is any of this frustration with the US new? Does the IMN have much of a history of anti-American feeling?
Well, I think this is something new, and you can tie it back to the level at which the Nigerian government has tried to curtail the activities of the Islamic movement. It's as if they knew this group would one day eventually come out and openly support Iran and openly criticize the United States. And in spite of all the repression we've seen over the years, we've now seen that had failed. And clearly this group has come out to protest.
Sam Olukoya there for us in Abuja. Look now at some other news. 5 Malian soldiers were killed in an attack near the border of Mauritania on Monday. It's still not clear who was behind the violence. The military struggled to get ahead of insecurity that followed the extremist takeover of the north of Mali in 2012 and a following spike in fatal ethnic clashes. Ugandan political opposition figure Bobi Wine's been detained once again. Police stopped him Monday from holding his first rally as a presidential hopeful. Police fired on crowds of supporters in Kampala. The 37-year-old musician was reportedly arrested for blatant disregard for the law. He's whipped up a strong following and been repeatedly held by police, since he became an MP in 2017. And in Zimbabwe, the wife of Vice President Constantino Chiwenga was granted bail on Monday. Mary Mubaiwa had been detained for 3 weeks on charges of the attempted murder of her husband. She denies all of those charges. Prosecutors accuse her of trying to unplug his life support tubes at a South African hospital back in June last year. Opposition politicians accuse the vice president of targeting Mubaiwa in a bid to influence a divorce settlement. Now, the port of Pointe-Noire has long been a focal point of Congo-Brazzaville's economy. But since 2014, a fall in oil prices has caused a crisis for local businesses as the port bore the brunt of the country's economic troubles. Take a look.
For 80 years, the port of Pointe-Noire has been at the centre of the Republic of Congo's economic activity. But in 2014, a fall in oil prices caused an economic crisis that the port has struggled to recover from. Since then, several companies have gone bankrupt. Like many, this entrepreneur is worried about the future of his business.
Many had to stop their activities, so they closed up shop and have filed for bankruptcy. As a result, we've lost contracts. And if we lose contracts, of course we cut jobs. And if you cut jobs, you almost have to reinvent yourself to stay in the market.
The oil industry is the main source of employment in Pointe-Noire, a city which is home to over 1 million people. But 50,000 people have lost their jobs in the sector since the crisis started.
We need to revive the economy and, in our opinion, the revival requires diversification, but also, when it comes to oil, the effective implementation of local products, which would allow oil companies to make local purchases and therefore revive the economy to some extent.
An International Monetary Fund bailout was approved in July 2019. With the country's growth forecasts on the rise, Pointe-Noire's port has also seen an increase in traffic. 900,000 containers passed through the port this year.
We hope that by the end of the year, we have a national growth rate which should exceed 3%. And that bodes well for the port. Because generally speaking, the prospects in terms of traffic for the port of Pointe-Noire are rather optimistic.
Congolese President Denis Sassou Nguesso announced an end to the recession. However, any optimism is overshadowed by the country's debts of over 2 billion euros, while there is little sign of new oil wealth trickling down.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks for joining us. See you again. Take care.